There are seasons in life where things fall apart so suddenly that you start asking yourself, is this it? Is this the moment everything stops for me? And the pressure of that thought sits heavy on your chest because you don't see any way out. You don't see any explanation. You don't see any purpose behind the storm. But what you're feeling is not the end. It's the weight of a transition you don't yet understand. God often lets the ground shake under you, not to bury you, but to move you into a space you would have never stepped into by yourself. When you're in that low place, your heart starts convincing you that this story is finished. But the truth is that God's story for you always has more chapters. What looks like a pause in your eyes is progress in His. God does some of His best writing in the dark seasons where you feel like no one sees you. He turns these valleys into plot twists that shake you, grow you, and eventually bless you beyond anything you could have imagined. If you look back over your life, you'll realize that some of your greatest breakthroughs came from situations you didn't want to be in. Things that felt like disappointment, but turned out to be direction. Times where you were convinced everything was falling apart, only for God to reveal that everything was falling into place. You didn't see it then, but now you know that those low moments served as the doorway to something better. Many people misinterpret the low season as punishment. But it's not punishment, it's repositioning. God will shut down environments that were draining you. He'll close doors that weren't meant for you. He'll end relationships that were holding you back. And in the moment, it hurts, it confuses you, it shocks you. But later, it makes perfect sense. Because you eventually realize that if God had let those things stay, they would have suffocated your purpose. The hardest part about the low season is not the pain, it's the not knowing. Not knowing what's next. Not knowing what God is doing. Not knowing where the path leads. But this is where faith becomes real. Faith doesn't thrive in certainty. Faith thrives in confusion. Faith thrives when you can't see but you trust anyway. Faith thrives when you say, God, I don't get it, but I know you're working. Even when your emotions scream that everything is over, your spirit has to remind you that God doesn't end stories in darkness. He begins them there. The world started in darkness. Life is formed in darkness. Gems are developed underground. Trees take root beneath the surface before they ever rise. So don't misjudge your darkness. There's development happening that you can't see yet. Whenever you feel like giving up, remember that your low place is not a gravestone, it's a building site. You're not stuck, you're being shaped. God is not done. The story is still unfolding. And this low point, no matter how heavy, will not be your final chapter. You might feel crushed right now, overwhelmed by pressures you never asked for. Life has a way of stacking weight on your shoulders until you feel like your legs can't hold you. But hear me clearly, God rarely performs His greatest miracles in comfortable moments. He hides His most powerful work inside the struggles that stretch you. It's in the tension, the discomfort, the crushing, where God molds you into something you couldn't have become without the pressure. Think about diamonds. They're formed under extreme intensity. Oil is produced through crushing. Gold is purified through fire. These things don't come from ease, they come from pressure. And God does the same with you. He takes seasons that feel unbearable and turns them into environments where your faith grows, your character matures, and your spirit strengthens in ways that prosperity could never teach you. Sometimes you assume you're being destroyed when in reality you're being developed. You're being trimmed, refined, sharpened. God knows exactly what parts of you can't go into your future, so He allows the pressure to remove what doesn't belong. It feels harsh, it feels personal, it feels unfair, but it's necessary for where you're headed. It's in your lowest, weakest moments that God teaches you who He is. When you're comfortable, you forget how to depend on Him. You forget that He's the source of your strength, your peace, your direction. But when the struggle hits, when things get tight, when everything seems fragile, you finally look up and realize that the only reason you're still standing is because He's holding you. The struggle also reveals things you never knew about yourself. You discover resilience you didn't know you had. You unlock courage you never tapped into. You gain wisdom that only comes when life pushes you past what you thought you could handle. And suddenly, you realize you're stronger, wiser, and more equipped because of the battle. The pressure also positions you for blessings that require maturity. God won't give you something big with a small capacity. He enlarges you first, and enlargement always involves stretching. You can't grow without discomfort. You can't expand without pressure. You can't be promoted without preparation. Struggle is not sabotage, it's spiritual training. So the next time you feel crushed, don't assume God is absent. He's present in ways you can't see yet. Hidden in the struggle is a breakthrough being formed, and when it emerges, you'll look back and say, now I understand why I had to go through that. When life is smooth, it's easy to clutter your world with things that don't matter. You fill your time with people, habits, distractions, and noise that feel important in the moment, but do nothing for your purpose. But when life drops you into a low season, suddenly everything non-essential falls away. Low moments refine your vision. They strip life down to the core so you can finally see what's real and what's been in your way. In the lows, you find out who your real friends are, not the ones who clap for your wins, but the ones who sit with you in your losses. Not the ones who come to your celebrations, but the ones who show up in your confusion. A low season reveals the truth about people in a way success never will. And it hurts, but it's necessary. The lows also show you the difference between convenience and commitment. People who are convenient fall away when life gets difficult. People who are committed lean in closer. You begin to see who was attached to you for what you provided and who was connected to you for who you truly are. Low seasons also force you to look at your priorities. Suddenly the things you stressed about don't matter at all. The arguments, the ego, the chasing after approval, it all becomes meaningless when you're fighting to hold yourself together. You start valuing peace more than popularity, purpose more than applause, growth more than comfort. And in that clarity, God begins to realign you. He removes what cannot go with you. He shifts your focus. He sharpens your discernment. He cuts away the excess that was draining you. When everything unnecessary is stripped away, what remains is what matters most: your character, your purpose, your faith, your inner strength. Your lows also reveal how much energy you were spending on things that kept you stuck. You suddenly realize how much time you wasted on the approval of others, the expectations of people, and the pressure to meet standards that never belonged to you. Low seasons free you from false burdens because they force you to face the truth. With all the noise gone, you begin to hear God more clearly. You begin to understand yourself more deeply. You begin to see the world more honestly. Your lows don't destroy you, they focus you. They help you recognize what matters, what doesn't, and what needs to change moving forward. Silence is one of the hardest places to be. When God stops speaking in the ways you're used to, it shakes you. You start questioning everything. You wonder if you're doing something wrong. You wonder if God has left, but silence doesn't mean absence. Silence often means preparation. God isn't quiet because he's gone. He's quiet because he's working. Sometimes the noise in your life is too loud for you to hear him. The opinions, the pressure, the chaos, it all drowns out his voice. So God will quiet the room. He'll remove certain people. He'll end certain distractions. He'll slow down your life until all you can hear is the sound of your own breathing and the whisper of his guidance hidden in the stillness. Silence teaches you patience. It forces you to wait when everything in you wants to rush. And waiting is where faith grows. You start learning that God's timing is not based on your urgency. He's never late. He's never rushed. He's never uncertain. He moves when it's right, not when you're uncomfortable. Silence also forces you to confront yourself. When the world gets quiet, your thoughts get louder. Your fears, your doubts, your insecurities, they all rise to the surface. But that's where the growth happens. God uses silence to reveal what needs healing inside you. He shows you the parts of your heart that need strengthening. In the silence, God also aligns things behind the scenes. You might feel stuck, but heaven is busy. God is moving puzzle pieces into place. He's arranging opportunities. He's preparing hearts. He's opening doors that you haven't even approached yet. Silence is not stagnation, it's strategy. Silence builds trust. It teaches you to rely on God even when you don't feel Him, even when you don't hear Him, even when nothing around you is changing. It's easy to trust when God is talking. But real faith is trusting when God is quiet. And then, when the silence breaks, everything makes sense. You realize He was never absent. He was strengthening you, preparing you, and guiding you in ways that didn't require words. Silence wasn't a punishment. It was an invitation to trust deeper. There comes a moment in every low season where something inside you shifts. You don't even notice it at first. You just feel tired of being tired. You feel drained from carrying the same burden. And that exhaustion becomes the birthplace of change. Your low point doesn't break you, it wakes you. It shakes you out of patterns you were too comfortable to leave. It pushes you toward decisions you wouldn't have made without the pain. Most people think the turning point comes when circumstances suddenly improve. But more often, it comes when you decide you can't stay where you are. Something in your spirit says, "This might be my situation, but this is not my life." It's that moment of inner rebellion against your current reality that marks the start of a new path. You may still be in the low, but mentally, you've started climbing. Turning points rarely look like miracles. They look like small decisions. Choosing to get up when you feel defeated. Choosing to pray when you feel forgotten. Choosing to believe when everything around you says quit. These choices don't look big on the outside, but they shift your future. The low season becomes the soil where your strength starts growing roots. And God uses the low to redirect you without asking your permission. He closes doors you would have never closed. He ends situations you would have stayed in. He removes comfort so you're forced into motion. You don't see the shift until later, but the low season is the exact place where God begins rearranging your entire direction. Sometimes your low point is where your purpose finally becomes clear. Pain has a way of stripping away everything unnecessary until all that's left is who you really are and what you're really meant to do. You begin seeing your life differently. You begin valuing things differently. Your priorities shift. Your perspective matures. The low didn't ruin you, it revealed you. And once that turning point hits your spirit, even if your circumstances haven't changed, you cannot go back to who you were. Something inside you refuses to settle, refuses to shrink, refuses to stay stuck. That inner shift is the first step toward elevation long before the outer shift becomes visible. Your low point is not your final destination. It is the exact ground where God pivots your life toward something bigger, something brighter, something stronger. You don't need a perfect moment for the turn. You just need a shift inside you. And when that shift happens, everything begins to move with it. When life is good, when money is flowing, when relationships feel easy, when goals are unfolding smoothly, it's tempting to start believing you're doing it all on your own. You forget where the strength came from. You forget who opened the doors. You forget who provided the opportunities. But then the lows come, and suddenly you remember you were never meant to rely on yourself. God allows certain lows to pull you away from relying on temporary things. He lets certain people leave because you depended on them too much. He closes certain resources because you started trusting them more than Him. It's not cruelty, it's correction. He's pulling you back to the source of your strength, not the substitutes. Dependence on God grows best in seasons where everything else fails. When you've run out of plans, out of strength, out of people, out of solutions, that's when you realize that God was the answer the entire time. He becomes real to you in a way He couldn't be when life was easy. You don't talk to Him casually anymore. You talk to Him desperately, honestly, and openly. Your low season teaches you to lean on God instead of leaning on your own understanding. You begin to see how limited your control is. You start recognizing how fragile your plans are. And you begin depending on a strength that doesn't run out, a wisdom that doesn't fail, and a love that doesn't change. God uses lows to build trust. He wants you to know that He doesn't just show up when you're strong, He shows up when you're broken. He doesn't just bless the finished version of you, He blesses the struggling version too. You begin to trust Him not because everything is going right, but because He stays with you when everything goes wrong. With every low season, your dependence on God gets deeper. You stop panicking over things you can't control. You stop chasing people who don't stay. You stop breaking yourself trying to hold everything together. Instead, you learn to let God hold you. That dependence brings peace, not because the situation changed, but because you finally understand you're not facing it alone. The lows that once terrified you will eventually become the places where your faith grew the most. You'll look back and realize that those seasons didn't weaken you. They built a dependence that nothing can shake, and that dependence becomes the foundation for everything God is about to do next. It's easy to talk about faith when life feels good. It's easy to say God is good when everything goes your way. But real faith shows up in moments where nothing makes sense. Real faith is tested when your heart aches, when your plans collapse, when your prayers seem unanswered. Your low moments reveal what you truly believe, not just what you say you believe. When life hits you hard, you discover whether your faith is built on feelings or foundation. Feelings fade. Feelings fluctuate. Feelings break under pressure. But real faith stands firm even when your emotions are shaking. Real faith says, God, I don't like this, I don't understand this, but I still trust you. Low moments force you to confront what your faith is anchored to. Were you trusting God, or were you trusting the blessings? Were you trusting His presence or the comfort it brought? Were you trusting His plan or the feeling of control? Lows expose the truth, not to shame you, but to strengthen you. You may not realize it, but every time you choose faith during a low moment, something powerful happens inside you. Your spiritual endurance grows. Your resilience grows. Your connection to God deepens. You're not just surviving the storm, you're becoming stronger because of it. Real faith doesn't ignore reality. It confronts reality with truth. It says, this hurts, but God is still with me. This is confusing, but God is still working. This feels impossible, but God still makes a way. That kind of faith is unshakable, and the only way you develop it is through the lows. When your faith survives a low season, it becomes harder for the enemy to shake you in the future. You become the kind of person who's seen God come through in darkness, so you don't panic when the lights go out again. You've survived battles that should have broken you, so the next battle doesn't intimidate you. Your low moments don't weaken your faith. They reveal it, refine it, and rebuild it stronger. And the faith you build in the valley becomes the faith you depend on when God raises you higher. Sometimes God allows a breaking, not to destroy you, but to rebuild you. There are parts of your character, your habits, your patterns, your mindset that cannot survive where God is taking you. So He allows the break-in to make room for growth. It feels painful. It feels confusing, but it's purposeful. Breaking seasons expose what was unstable. They reveal what was weak. They bring to light the things you ignored. You may not have noticed the cracks, but God saw them. And instead of letting your life collapse later, He breaks you now in a controlled, intentional way so He can rebuild you correctly. You don't grow from comfort. You grow from stretching. You grow from testing. You grow from being pushed beyond what you thought you could handle. The breaking stretches you into the version of yourself you were always meant to become. Sometimes the breaking is internal. Old insecurities crack open. Old wounds rise to the surface. Old fears come up again. But that's because healing can't happen in hiding. God breaks what you've covered so He can heal what you've ignored. Other times the breaking is external. Plans fail. Friendships fall apart. Opportunities disappear. Doors close. You feel like everything is collapsing. But you don't realize that God is removing what couldn't support your future. He's not taking things from you. He's clearing the space for what's coming. When God rebuilds you, He doesn't patch you up. He reconstructs you. He strengthens the areas that were weak. He matures the areas that were undeveloped. He aligns the areas that were out of order. You come out stronger, wiser, calmer, and far more grounded. And the powerful thing about being rebuilt is that you can't be broken by the same things again. What used to shake you no longer does. What used to scare you now strengthens you. The breaking wasn't the end, it was the beginning of a stronger version of you. Pressure has a way of revealing the truth. It shows you who you are beneath the surface, beyond the image, beyond the confidence you project, beyond the strength you pretend to have. When life drops you low, the mask falls off. You see the real you, and that can be uncomfortable, but it's also powerful, because once the truth is visible, growth becomes possible. In low seasons, you discover strengths you never knew you had. You find out that you can survive what you thought would break you. You find out that you can keep moving even when you feel numb. You find out that you can still pray even when you're angry, confused, or exhausted. These discoveries change how you see yourself. They make you realize you're tougher, wiser, and more resilient than you ever expected. But low seasons also reveal weaknesses you need to confront. They show you the habits that hurt you, the patterns that hold you back, the fears that control you. Things you ignored when life was easy become unavoidable when life gets difficult. It's not punishment, it's identification. God is showing you what needs to change so you can grow. Your lows expose where you've been settling. They show you the relationships you stayed in out of comfort, the dreams you abandoned out of fear, the opportunities you ignored out of insecurity. Suddenly you start seeing decisions clearly, decisions you justified before but can no longer defend. The low season forces honesty. In these moments, you begin understanding the difference between your identity and your situation. You realize you are not your mistakes. You are not your failures. You are not your setbacks. You are not your lowest moment. You may be in a low place, but that low place is not who you are. That distinction becomes the fuel that pushes you forward. Low seasons also teach you how to fight. When life is easy, you never have to use your inner strength. But when everything collapses, you're forced to tap into a level of determination you didn't know existed. You fight for your peace. You fight for your future. You fight for your growth. And in the process, you meet the version of yourself that God always saw. When you come out of that season, you don't walk the same. You don't think the same. You don't fear the same. You don't doubt the same. The low season didn't break you. It introduced you to your real self. Pain feels pointless when you're in it. It feels random. It feels unfair. You question everything, your decisions, your faith, your direction, even your worth. But God is intentional. He never lets pain hit your life without purpose attached to it. Pain is not wasted. It becomes a tool, a teacher, a turning point. Pain highlights what needs healing. It exposes what you've buried. It brings forward the things you've ignored for years. You can't grow past something you're unwilling to face, and pain pulls those hidden wounds to the surface so you can finally start the healing process you avoided. Pain also breaks your pride. It humbles you in ways success never could. It teaches compassion. It makes you softer toward others. You start understanding people differently because you've walked through something that changed the way you see the world. Pain doesn't just shape your story, it shapes your heart. God uses pain as preparation. There are blessings, responsibilities, and opportunities He cannot give you until your character is ready. And character is shaped in the fire. You learn discipline, patience, humility, resilience, all through moments that hurt. Pain becomes the training ground for your next level. Pain also becomes a testimony. The thing that made you cry today will one day be the same thing you use to encourage someone else. You'll look someone in the eye and say, I've been there. I know how this feels, and I made it. Your pain becomes someone else's hope. Your struggle becomes someone else's survival guide. And when God restores you, He never restores you halfway. He doesn't return you to your old life. He elevates you into something better. Every tear becomes investment. Every setback becomes seed. Every low becomes foundation. The pain becomes the very thing that strengthens your future. Pain might break you for a moment, but it builds you for a lifetime. And when God turns it around, You'll see clearly that not a single moment was wasted. Greatness is not built on comfort. It's built on struggle. Every person who has ever risen to something meaningful had a season where life knocked them flat. You don't become great in easy seasons. You become great in seasons that test everything inside you. That low moment you're living through is not a punishment. It's preparation. God uses low seasons to train your strength. You learn endurance. You learn persistence. You learn discipline. The struggle forces you to keep going even when you don't feel motivated. And that kind of strength is what your future will require. Greatness demands consistency, not convenience. Low moments also train your character. They expose your motives. They reveal your heart. They show you whether you want elevation for the right reasons or the wrong ones. You learn humility, gratitude, integrity, not during the wins, but during the losses. That low place builds your emotional and spiritual stamina. You learn how to stand without applause. You learn how to push without validation. You learn how to believe without evidence. These skills become weapons in the next season of your life. The low season also teaches you discipline. You learn how to work when you don't feel like it. You learn how to keep going when nothing around you is changing. You learn how to be faithful when the results are invisible. That's the kind of discipline that produces destiny. The low also shapes your gratitude. Once you've been at the bottom, you appreciate every blessing differently. You don't take success for granted. You don't overlook small wins. You don't lose sight of how far you've come. The lows make your future victories sweeter. When you finally rise, you rise with skills, strength, and spiritual muscle that can only be developed in the valley. The low season wasn't holding you back. It was preparing you for the greatness ahead. Sometimes God waits until the last possible moment to step in. He waits until your strength runs out, until your resources dry up, until your plans fall apart. And you start thinking, maybe this is it. Maybe I'm alone in this. But that's exactly when God shows up. He moves in moments where you least expect him. God's timing often feels late to you because it doesn't match your urgency. You want immediate relief. You want instant clarity. You want fast results. But God works with purpose, not panic. He waits until the situation matures enough for the miracle to make sense. God loves impossible situations because they leave no room for doubt. When he shows up at the point where no one else could help you, no one else could fix it, no one else could rescue you, you know it was him. The testimony becomes unmistakable. When God delays, it's not denial. He's strengthening your faith. He's stretching your patience. He's preparing your heart. He's aligning the circumstances. The delay is not empty time, it's intentional timing. And when God finally moves, everything changes at once. What you struggled with for months breaks in a moment. What you prayed for in tears arrives in clarity. What confused you for so long suddenly becomes obvious. God moves in ways that make you forget how long you waited. You begin to understand that his timing protected you. If things had happened earlier, you wouldn't have been ready. If the blessing came too soon, you wouldn't have appreciated it. God waits because he knows the difference between your readiness and your desire. When he shows up in a way that leaves no doubt, no confusion, and no question. You realize he was never late. He was setting the stage for something only he could do. Before elevation comes separation. God will separate you from comfort before he elevates you into calling. Low seasons are often the moments where everything familiar is stripped away. You feel isolated, but you're not being isolated. You're being prepared. God uses your lows to activate the next phase of your purpose. You start seeing things differently. You start thinking differently. Your spirit opens up to new possibilities. The lows make you hungry for growth in a way comfort never could. Certain levels require a stronger version of you. They require emotional maturity, spiritual clarity, and mental discipline. The low season builds those qualities quietly, slowly, deeply. You're being upgraded internally before you're promoted externally. God will remove certain people because they can't go with you. He'll shut down certain opportunities because they weren't meant for your future. He'll close doors you prayed for not because He's against you, but because He's protecting what's ahead. The low season forces you to dig deeper. You stop running from growth. You stop avoiding responsibility. You stop hiding your gifts. You begin stepping into who you were called to be, not who you settled as. The moment you shift internally, heaven shifts around you. Suddenly opportunities appear. Suddenly clarity comes. Suddenly blessings align. Your next level doesn't start when your situation changes. Your next level starts when you change. The low season wasn't demotion. It was activation. It triggered the transformation necessary for where God is taking you next. Some blessings come wrapped in discomfort. You avoid certain conversations, certain changes, certain decisions because they feel painful. But those uncomfortable moments often hold the breakthrough you've been praying for. God hides blessings in the places you hesitate to enter. The very situation you fear facing might be the one that frees you. The habit you avoid breaking might be the key to your next level. The door you're afraid to knock on might open into a season you've been waiting for. Growth always lives on the other side of discomfort. Low seasons force you into rooms you wouldn't choose. They push you into growth you didn't plan for. They make you confront truths you ignored. And hidden inside those very moments is the blessing God prepared. You don't find strength until you face weakness. You don't find clarity until you confront confusion. You don't find healing until you touch the wound. God places blessings in places that require courage, not convenience. The lows also reveal opportunities you never noticed. When you're broken, you pay attention to things you used to overlook. You see the world differently. You recognize doors you ignored before. The blessing becomes visible only when the ego becomes quiet. Often, the blessing is not the situation, it's who you become in the process. It's the wisdom you gain. It's the courage you develop. It's the faith you build. The blessing is sometimes the transformation, not the outcome. Don't run from the low place. Don't hide from the hard truth. The very thing you're avoiding may hold the exact breakthrough God designed for you. Low seasons humble you. They remind you that you're human. They remind you that you're not invincible. They remind you that you need God. But at the same time, something powerful happens. You become dangerous to every doubt, fear, and limitation that once controlled you. When you've hit rock bottom and survived, you walk differently. You don't fear failure the way you used to, because you've already fallen and risen again. You don't fear judgment because you've lived through moments where no one understood you. You become bold in a way that only comes from surviving what should have broken you. The low strips away ego, and what remains is confidence, not the loud kind, but the unshakable kind. The kind that says, if I made it through that, I can make it through anything. You stop doubting yourself because you've seen yourself endure. People who have survived lows develop a type of wisdom that can't be taught. You read situations better. You sense people's intentions faster. You recognize danger earlier. You move with discernment because you've learned the cost of ignoring the signs. You also become more grateful. Things you used to overlook now feel like blessings. Peace becomes precious. Small wins feel big. The lows recalibrate your appreciation for life. And because you've lived through tough seasons, you stop settling. You stop tolerating disrespect. You stop accepting less than you deserve. Surviving lows raises your standards. You refuse to live beneath your calling because you know what it costs. The low season humbled you, but it also built a strength inside you that makes you unstoppable moving forward. The same God who allowed the low season is the same God who will lift you out of it. He didn't bring you into the valley to leave you there. He brought you through it so He could elevate you with greater purpose, deeper wisdom, and stronger character. When God starts lifting you, it happens gradually at first. You start feeling lighter. You start gaining clarity. You start seeing possibilities again. The heaviness begins to loosen. The confusion begins to clear. The shift begins inside long before it becomes visible outside. Then God starts aligning opportunities. Doors open that were previously sealed. Conversations happen that you didn't initiate. Blessings arrive that you couldn't have planned. Everything begins moving with a timing that feels divine because it is. When God lifts you, He lifts you higher than where you were before. He doesn't return you to the starting point. He advances you. The low was not a detour. It was the launch pad. You're rising with more strength, more clarity, and more direction than ever before. God also surrounds you with better people. He removes those who drained you and brings those who align with your destiny. The people you meet in your next season will match your purpose, not your pain. And as God lifts you, something beautiful happens. You don't forget where you came from. Your gratitude deepens. Your humility stays intact. You remember the nights you cried, the battles you fought, the valleys you survived. And that memory keeps you grounded even as you rise. God doesn't restore you to the same level. He elevates you to a higher one. The low season was not a burial. It was planting. And now you're growing into everything God always intended for you.